You're listening to Learn As You Parent, the podcast that gets real about raising kids. Because let's face it, parenting doesn't come with a manual. I'm your host, Sarah Beth. Picture this. It's a hot day and you're outside having fun with your child. Then you start to wonder, do they need more than just water? Could they be dehydrated? As part of our summer survival series, we're tackling all things hydration with our special guest, pediatrician Dr. Ann Cates. So grab your water bottle. Here we go. Hello, and welcome to Learn As You Parent. We are talking about summer survival right now. And what does that mean as a parent with your kids? Luckily, we have a doctor here, Dr. Ann Cates, and we actually know each other from a very long time ago.
Mm-hmm. 25 years.
Well, we didn't need to say that, but you did. Okay. So we have known each other for a little bit of a long time. And today would love to pick your brain on, tell us about hydration.
Yeah.
Key points. Why is it important?
Yeah.
And for ourselves, for our kids, and do we really need to be more mindful even with kids?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I would say, secondary to breathing, hydration is probably like one of the very top things that you have to pay attention to with your kids, whether they're outside getting hot in the summer or whether they're sick with, a virus of some sort and they don't want to drink as much. Hydration is very, very important, and especially this time of year. So kind of starting with the younger age. So let's say the first 6 months of life, right? So infants, whether they're breastfed or formula fed or both, they're really getting everything they need from their formula or their breast milk. It's really not recommended to do extra water prior to about 6 months old. If they seem like they're thirsty and they're hot, go ahead and give them whatever formula or breast milk. Starting at around 6 months, which is also around the time that they start, eating some purees and start, eating solid foods and everything, that's when adding a little bit of extra water in can be healthy and helpful. And especially if you guys have been outside and gotten hot, been in the sun some, we lose water through sweat, right? Through just kind of evaporation off our bodies. And we really need to kind of replace that while we're out in the heat and even after we're back in from the heat.
What if you don't sweat? I don't really sweat.
Even worse, I don't either. I'm a
like
terrible
this false
sweater.
Hope of like, oh, I don't really need to hydrate, even though I'm not sweating.
Nope. You still need to hydrate because when you don't sweat, your body doesn't cool itself off the way it's supposed to.
Oh.
So you get hotter than your friend who sweats. Yeah.
Learning.
Yeah, exactly. So hydration is still very important for all of us. Even those of us who don't sweat very well. So in terms of what do we use? Do we just use water? Do we use Gatorade? Do we use Pedialyte? What do we use to hydrate? So things like Gatorade, Pedialyte, Powerade, Liquid IV, all of those things have electrolytes, which are like sodium, potassium, those kinds of things. And those electrolytes are things that your body also needs. So making sure you have a good balance of electrolytes helps your body to hold on to as much water as it needs to function well. I like the electrolyte drinks personally. Now, is that an absolute must? No. If you're out there, you're hot, and there's water and that's it, drink the water.
When do you introduce electrolyte drinks and how?
Right. So it depends on the situation. So Pedialyte is the one that's perfectly balanced in terms of what babies and kids need for electrolytes. So we will recommend giving Pedialyte, early on, even as early as about 2 months or so, if a baby is having vomiting and diarrhea, for example, to replace those fluids that they're losing when they have the vomiting and the diarrhea. But that's kind of a different situation than getting hot in the summertime. I wouldn't necessarily give a baby Pedialyte just because you guys have been out in the heat. I would just do, like I said, the formula or the breast milk. But yeah, 6 months would be kind of the time when, you can consider using that for kind of rehydration after getting hot. But again, water works fine too. The electrolyte solutions are more important when you have a setup like vomiting and diarrhea, when you're actually losing those electrolytes that your body has and you need to replace those. But if you're just hot and you're sweaty, either or, water or Pedialyte. They also make Pedialyte popsicles, so those are kind of fun.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so is that at every grocery store, or is that?
They're pretty easy to find, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can order them online too.
Or make them yourself.
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah. You pour some Pedialyte in a popsicle little thing and there you go.
That's what we would do.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that's interesting. Learning.
Yeah.
Learning here. So, how much do you need though? If it's like, okay, it's hot, we're going to be outside for 2 hours, we'll be swimming, and what do you recommend? Is it so many ounces per hour of being outside?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have kind of like little equations that we can use to calculate fluid needs based on how much a baby or a kid weighs. So, when we have somebody in the hospital and we have them on IV fluids, for example, we can calculate, okay, how much IV fluid do they need to get in a 24-hour period? So that's pretty technical, right? We're trying to keep it easy. And the best way to keep it easy is to know that, babies and kids and their kind of natural thirst reflex, I guess you could call it, their sense of thirst, they're actually better than we give them credit for at taking in what they need. So I think the easiest thing to do is just make sure that you have, water, Pedialyte, Gatorade, whatever, available to offer your kid. And if you're hot and you're thirsty, chances are they're getting thirsty as well. So just offering it to them, letting them drink what they want of it, is generally going to be just fine, and not worrying so much about the numbers, but, letting them take what their body's telling them to take.
Well, and then what about now that they've tasted the amazingness that is Gatorade?
Yeah.
Now that's all they're going to want.
Yeah.
So what do you do then?
That's when you just got to tough love it and just say, no, I'm sorry, you can't have that right now. Because we don't want them to decide that they're drinking all Gatorade and then not want their breast milk or their formula, because that's where nutrition comes from, during the first year, especially when before they've started foods, or when they're early food eaters, like 6-7 months, and they're still getting bulk majority of their calories from breast milk or formula. Definitely keep that in mind. That's really the main reason why we don't really recommend giving water before 6 months, is because their little tummies are so small. There's not much room in their little tummies, and we don't want them to fill up with water at the expense of having room for the nutritious stuff. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard that if your baby is hot or you're going to be outside, just breastfeed more.
Yes.
Or just
more frequent.
give more. That's what
Offer
I heard.
it to them more frequently. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're breastfeeding, again, like we mentioned before, your fluid intake really needs to be adequate too, so that you can continue to make enough breast milk for your baby.
That's true. Now, is there anything you can say that is a sign of early detection of, okay, that kid isn't hydrated, there's heat exhaustion?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what those signs are, and then what do you do?
Right. So basically watching what's going in and watching what's coming out. So urination or wet diapers. The kind of one of the early things you notice when a child begins to get dehydrated, or a baby begins to get dehydrated, is a decrease in how much urine they're making. So that's kind of what you keep an eye on. And you can also see it in other places too, like their mucous membranes, their mouth. Are they still making a lot of spit? Are they drooling? When you look inside their mouth, does it look wet or does it look kind of dry? Tears. Are they crying tears, or are they crying and nothing's really coming out of their eyes? Do their eyes look, nice and healthy, or do they look kind of sunken? And in little babies whose soft spot is still open, the soft spot is also something that can give you a clue. So when their soft spot starts to get sunken in, that can be a sign of dehydration also.
What age?
It varies. Like, it usually closes up somewhere between 9 to 18 months.
Okay.
So pretty wide variation. And the older they get, the less it's going to like change with their hydration. So more applies to the little bitties.
Okay.
First 6 months.
But if they have a lot of hair, can you even tell?
You can feel it.
Okay.
You can kind of feel it, but yeah, that mostly applies to little bitty ones.
Okay. And so you just went over the signs of heat exhaustion, and then what do you do?
Yeah, so those are signs of dehydration, and you can also see like color change of the skin. You can feel it on the skin as well. They can look red. They can feel hot to the touch. They can have changes in their like mental status. They can kind of seem drowsy or just seem really irritable, really cranky. And so what do? You first try to cool them off however you can. Ideally, you could get out of the heat and go somewhere with air conditioning. But if you're still outside, you can just try to find shade, remove any layers that aren't necessary in terms of like the clothing. Getting wet and then getting in the shade can help as well, because that kind of like helps with the evaporative cooling. If your skin is wet or you're wearing some wet clothes and you get in the shade and a breeze like a fan or something like that, that evaporation helps cool them off better. And of course, if you're seeing any of those things like the changes in mental status, like I was mentioning, or significantly decreased urine output, decreased wet diapers, that's when you really want to seek medical care and take them in, because they very well might need some IV fluids.
Okay.
And that's compounded if they are sick and vomiting and having diarrhea and losing fluid in that way too.
Okay. So if your baby just happens to be outside and you think they're heat exhaustion, but then they're really drowsy, do you just put them down for a nap, or do you try and like, what do you do in those moments?
Yeah,
they're tired? You just let them
Yeah, I think it depends on, is this a normal expected time for them to be tired? Like if it's their nap time and they've been drinking well and you haven't really noticed a decrease in how much they're peeing and it just seems like they're sleepy because it's nap time. Yeah. But if it's not really a normal time you'd expect them to be sleepy, especially if you're seeing some of those other signs that we talked about, that's when I would say, try to get them inside, get them cooled off, see if they perk up and start acting more normal. And if not, go ahead and take them in to be checked out.
Okay. And how hot is too hot outside? Is there a degree temperature that you know about?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't like it if it's 95 or above personally, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that there's a number cut off specifically, but if it feels uncomfortable for you, it's uncomfortable for your kid too. That's kind of the rule to follow, I would say.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for our hydration piece. Cheers. It's water, y'all.
Yeah, it's water.
And be sure to like and subscribe to help keep this content going. We will be back very shortly with another Summer Survival Series episode.